The historical impact of atheistic and socialist regimes. Death tolls and repression. Throughout the 20th century, several atheistic and socialist regimes arose, often advocating radical social, economic, and political changes. These regimes were marked by their efforts to reshape society according to materialist ideologies, rejecting religion and consolidating absolute power. The outcomes were devastating: political purges, suppression of religious communities, and mass atrocities. Below is a historical overview of notable atheistic and socialist regimes and the number of lives lost under their rule. 1. Soviet Union, 1917-1991, 20 million plus deaths regime. Type: atheistic Marxism, Leninism. Leader: Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin. Atrocities: political purges, gulags, forced collectivization, famines, e.g. Holodomor in Ukraine. Impact: Stalin's Great Purge alone killed millions of political opponents, and millions more died from forced labor camps and state-created famines. Religion, especially Christianity, was heavily repressed, with churches destroyed and clergy imprisoned or killed. 2. Communist China, 1949-present, 65 million plus deaths. Regime type: atheistic communism. Leader: Mao Zedong. Atrocities: Great Leap Forward, cultural revolution, political purges, suppression of religious practices. Impact: The Great Leap Forward led to the deaths of approximately 45 million people from starvation, forced labor, and violence. The Cultural Revolution targeted intellectuals, religious figures, and anyone seen as counter-revolutionary, leading to millions of deaths and the destruction of China's cultural and religious heritage. 3. Nazi Germany, 1933-1945, 17 million plus deaths regime. Type: National Socialism. Leader: Adolf Hitler. Atrocities: Holocaust, political purges, ethnic cleansing, wars of aggression. Impact: While not explicitly atheistic, Nazi Germany adopted a materialist ideology that rejected Christianity and sought to replace religious belief with state worship. The Holocaust resulted in the genocide of 6 million Jews, along with millions of other victims, including Slavs, Roma, disabled individuals, and political opponents. 4. Cambodia, 1975-1979, 2 million plus deaths regime. Type: atheistic communism. Leader: Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. Atrocities: mass executions, forced labor, and starvation. Impact: Pol Pot's radical socialist vision sought to create an agrarian utopia by eradicating religion, intellectuals, and anyone connected to the previous government. Entire communities were relocated, and people were worked to death in labor camps known as the killing fields. Roughly 25% of Cambodia's population perished. 5. North Korea, 1948-present, 2 million plus deaths regime. Type: atheistic socialist dictatorship leaders: Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un. Atrocities: famines, concentration camps, and political repression. Impact: The regime enforces strict atheism, worshiping its leaders instead. It suppresses religion entirely and operates labor camps where political dissenters and their families are imprisoned. Famines in the 1990s killed more than 1 million people, and persecution of religious groups continues. 6. Cuba, 1959-present, 100,000 plus deaths regime. Type: atheistic communism. Leader: Fidel Castro. Atrocities: political executions, imprisonments, and forced labor. Impact: The Cuban government repressed religious institutions, imprisoned political opponents, and executed many after the revolution. While mass killings were not as extensive as in other regimes, thousands perished under political repression, and religious freedom was systematically curtailed. 7. Vietnam, 1975-present, 1 million plus deaths regime. Type: atheistic socialism. Leaders, Ho Chi Minh and successors, atrocities, political purges, re-education camps, and suppressions of religious freedom. Impact. After the fall of South Vietnam, the communist government purged opponents and sent many to re-education camps. Religious persecution continues to this day, with Christians and Buddhists being targeted for practicing their faith. Estimated total death toll of atheistic and socialist regimes. Total deaths, 100 million plus. This estimate covers political purges, genocide, engineered famines, and labor camps. While not every socialist regime strictly adhered to atheism, many pursued policies hostile to religious faith, seeing religion as an obstacle to their materialist and totalitarian goals. The atheist and socialist rejection of religion. Many of these regimes sought to eradicate religion because it was perceived as a competing source of authority and moral guidance. Religion, which often emphasizes individual conscience and the sanctity of life, stood in opposition to state worship and the absolute power of the regime. This led to the widespread persecution of religious communities, Christians, Buddhists, Jews, and others, resulting in untold human suffering. Conclusion. Lessons from history. The history of atheistic and socialist regimes serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers posed by ideologies that reject spiritual values in favor of materialism and totalitarian control. These regimes illustrate how the consolidation of power, when combined with ideological zeal and the suppression of dissent, can lead to human suffering on an unimaginable scale. Recognizing these patterns helps ensure that future generations remain vigilant against similar movements that threaten fundamental human freedoms, including religious liberty.